Hello, students, and welcome again to ENG 111. For this first 2 weeks lecture, I have a little list here of what I'm going to be going over, starting with why write in the first place, why take this class. I'm going to let you know. We're going to go over the definition of rhetoric and how it applies to your writing and this class. It's a very important term to understand. What I like to call the so what factor and how it applies to your writing. I'm sure you're sensing a theme here. I'm then finally going to go over the narrative writing unit and give you a little introduction to your brainstorming activity that is due at the end of the week. So let's get started. First and foremost, why ENG 111? Why write in the first place? Why take this class other than the fact that it's required? Well, we are learning to compose in order to communicate effectively. This is something that we essentially do every day, and you may not know it. A lot of people think about compositions in terms of essays. Okay, I'm taking this college class. I have to write this long essay for my instructor, which is considered to be a composition. You are not wrong, but composition can be a lot of things. A text message is considered a composition, an email. Something as important as a cover letter or a resume are forms of composition. My job as your instructor is to teach you to compose these things effectively, whether it's big, small, anywhere in between. And I hope to do that for you in this course. In order to communicate effectively, in order to make these awesome compositions, we're first going to have to learn a little bit about rhetoric, which is a term that is going to be used in the entire class. So it's important that you know it. The technical definition is the art of effective or persuasive speaking or writing, especially the use of figures of speech and other compositional techniques. Alrighty, so essentially rhetoric, you're making an argument. We're going to learn how to make an argument effectively in this class for every single one of your major essays. All three people that you see pictured here have used rhetoric in one way or another, whether you know it or not. MLK Jr., he used rhetoric in order to convince politicians to pass the Civil Rights Act. We have Steve Jobs, who used rhetoric to convince consumers to buy his Apple products. Singer-songwriters like Janelle Monáe have used rhetoric in order to make political change in their songs. She has a lot of songs about female empowerment specifically. We are also going to be talking a little bit about the so what factor. Basically, as you're working on your rhetoric, as you're developing it throughout this course with your writing, you want to ask yourself two major questions. One, why is the writing meaningful? And two, what purpose does it serve? Think about it. As I'm reading all of your beautiful essays, when I get to the end of a student essay, I don't want to be asking myself, so what? Why did I bother to read this today, except for the fact that I need to grade the student, right? We want to make sure that our writing is meaningful and purposeful throughout the entire semester. Now, with all that being said, how does rhetoric fit in with narrative writing? After all, a narrative isn't an argument, is it? It is. So we want to think about purpose first and foremost. We don't just want to write words on a page and call it a day and then throw it in the trash, right? We want to create something beautiful, something meaningful. That starts with coming up with a definitive purpose. For example, here are some action phrases that you could potentially use when thinking about purpose. Are you trying to elicit empathy with your audience? To change the perception of something, to warn against, to call attention to something, okay? So really, a narrative is an argument. You are providing evidence in order to make a claim. The evidence is that vivid detail that you choose to integrate into your story in order to make your audiences believe that it actually happened, which is actually your claim. Now, what is a narrative? Going back to the textbook. A narrative is a vivid account of at least one event. Now, an event is a single occurrence, incident, or happening. For the purposes of your narrative essay that is due at the end of the unit, you are just going to be focusing on one event. So a singular incident that took place at a specific day and time. I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like. So again, we want to concentrate on a singular event, as in, I completed work on my first Habitat for Humanity house. Check mark. It took place on a specific time, day, and place. What we don't want for our essays is a pattern of activity. For example, for 3 years, I have participated in Habitat for Humanity. Okay, we really want to narrow that down quite a bit. Now you're being asked to write a narrative for this unit. Okay, singular event, check. But we want it to be a vivid narrative. Why? We want it to have purpose. A narrative technically could be, I walked into the classroom, I sat down, I took out my laptop and began typing. Okay, technically this is a narrative, right? It's a boring one though. Took place during a specific time, day, and place, but we're not really engaging our audience. Whereas if you were to tell me, as soon as I walked in the classroom, an owl swooped over my head and dropped a package in front of my feet. After recovering from surprise, I tore the package open. A mysterious cloth poured out like liquid. It was an invisibility cloak. Ah, okay. Now I have my audience's attention, and clearly the story is meaningful to me because I've written so many details with it. Now you may be thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, singular event. How am I going to do this? I got to think back for the last 10 years of my life. What went right? What went wrong? Oh my gosh, it's okay. Look at the brainstorming ideas on pages 24 to 25 of your textbook. More specifically, think about patterns of activity in your life that can be transformed into a smaller event. For example, let's say you play football and you love football and you've been playing football for the past 5 years. That would be considered a pattern of activity. But when we're thinking about this narrative essay and this particular assignment, we want to think of a singular incident that took place on a specific time, day, and place. So maybe it was the day that you first joined a football team. Maybe it was a championship game that you won. Maybe you lost and it taught you a lot. These are just some things to think about. In addition to being specific, think about the happiest moment of your life, not just a time when you were happy, or the most terrifying, the time when you were the angriest, the saddest, whatever emotion that you can come up with. Why? The more detailed you are about this singular event, the more purpose you create for your audience and the more engaged they'll be. That's it for now. See you next time.